Go.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Convert Show. Hello, and today's topic we'll be looking at something some might say is a hidden story in the Islam of the UK, and that's looking at black converts. With me, as always, is my co-host, Auntie Batool Altoma, and we also have two guests with us, featuring Dawood Loka, who's a creative, a researcher, and an entrepreneur. He was born in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and moved over to Britain to widen his horizons, and now engages in lots of different conversations all over the place, including on Speaker's Corner. And he's going to be joining us and sharing his experiences. And also we have Zara. Batool, if you'd like to introduce Zara.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. You're listening to the Convert Show with Andrew and myself as your co-host, Batool, on Ramadan Radio London 87.9 FM, online at ramadanradio.org and streaming on YouTube. Please do call us. We'd love to hear from you on WhatsApp with your feedback, questions, comments, and you can call us on 077 614 60614. That's 077 614 60614. Please do join us. Please do call in and give us some of your comments and criticisms and your feedback to the show. So yes, welcome to Zara. Zara is from Leicester, mashallah. A very sporty girl, very much involved in sports and activities. And Zara has a very interesting job. She works in a center for those who have been injured or have had trauma. And I think that's to the head, is it, Zara, or bodily trauma?
Brain injury, yes.
Brain injury. So this is a very specific area of work, and I think Zara does a fabulous job on it. Zara is originally from Ghana and has lived in Leicester at Leicester University, and is very much involved in the community, inshallah, and City Retreat in particular. We're all followers and attendees of City Retreat. So that's us, Andrew.
So today's topic is going to be covering black converts to Islam in the UK, their experiences and possibly their stories as well. This is something that could be regarded as a hidden story by many, and that's why we've been invited Dawood and Zara to come on the show. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring Dawood straight into this. But Dawood, as a black convert to Islam, what have your experiences been in terms of the wider Muslim community in the UK?
I would say the awareness of being a black Muslim has changed over time. So when you first become Muslim, you aren't aware of certain ins and outs in the particular wider community. So I became Muslim in 2007, which was, I actually was raised in Germany. So I've been here since 2008, and I took my Shahada a year before that. And coming over here, like I said, I felt like being part of the wider community. You know, I had friends from Somalia, I had friends from Pakistan, and it was fairly easy at the beginning, and it sort of becomes more complex once you become more aware of things. Yeah.
What kind of issues did you experience, kind of like after settling in with the friends? What kind of fields of life were difficult for you?
Yeah, I think I recall this was probably 2012 or something, and it was in Ramadan. It was on Eid, and it's like sort of the typical revert story. I was at Kingston Masjid, and I was living by myself. I actually was living with a friend of mine who was not Muslim. But yeah, it was Eid, and I had no place to go. You know, it was a very upsetting time for me, especially because in Germany I would have like my local community, my friends and stuff. But then here in the UK, I was super isolated. I had no one to celebrate Eid with. other than the prayer. And bearing in mind, I have loads of family in the UK who have a Christian background, so I couldn't really share that day with them per se. So that was very, very upsetting. Yeah.
Can I ask you, Dawood, I mean, how did your family react to your conversion to Islam? Were they supportive, or were they particularly upset or annoyed about it?
Yeah, so my immediate family, as in my mom and my father, they were super, super supportive, which was, I guess, one of the things that made me, take this religion even more serious, because the support was just there. I remember my mom, she had heard through the grapevine that I had become Muslim, because in Germany, I used to live in a very medium-sized city. So the news spread there very quickly. She heard that I became Muslim, and I remember this one event, and I came to the table, and she's like, "Oh, I heard you become Muslim now. Obviously, I've prepared this food for you." So yeah, that was just super, super nice.
Wow, that must have been really, that was a lovely thing, really.
Yeah.
I mean, mashallah, because I mean, for a lot of converts, probably from a more white background, their families are usually very objectionable to the fact that they become.
Sure.
But I think it's lovely when parents, accept it and support it and actually go out of their way to try to accommodate it.
Yeah.
Can I ask Zara if you share that experience in terms of how your own family has been as well with your own conversion, Zara?
SubhanAllah, mashallah, assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. For me, oh my gosh, mine was completely the opposite. Alhamdulillah, for when you hear about different stories and you're like, oh, okay, alhamdulillah, not everyone has gone through that imtihan, that trial. So you're kind of happy that it's not so intense. Whereas for me, subhanAllah, mine was how can I put it, an interesting story. So for me, my mom and dad, my mom was like, who's the boyfriend? Who is he? Why did you do it? Who's the man? And every guy, because I used to always just hang around with boys back in the day. So she'd be like, oh, is it him? Did he make you Muslim? I'm like, yo, this friend, he's not even Muslim. And then my dad, he was like, you're brainwashed, because I actually became Muslim after 9/11. So that was a whole drastic other issue. My dad was just like, you're brainwashed. And I'm like, well, if I'm brainwashed by the truth, alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my experience. That's in a nutshell. There's more to it. That's the umbrella for everything. My mom and dad, my dad said I was brainwashed, and my mom thought I became Muslim because of a guy. So, yeah.
Did you feel that there was a particular tension between your culture at the time and your conversion, and what was kind of creating those tensions?
Oh God, subhanAllah. So when you actually become Muslim, it's like you're in itself, you've got your own trials as being, for me, a Ghanaian Black woman. Then now I have to be a Ghanaian Black Muslim woman. That in itself is another trial, another culture difference. It shouldn't be a difference, but it really is, because, for instance, I'm really loud. Our family is loud. Ghanaian women are loud. Do you know what I mean? We are not even Ghanaian. I'm sorry to kind of put it generic. African women are very loud. So it was kind of hard in that culture difference to understand about adab and etiquette, and understanding about being a Muslim woman, how your haya and shy and stuff. So that in itself was another culture difference, and that was just a different turning point for me. So that was one.
But you know what, Zara? I mean, what is wrong with loudness? There's nothing wrong. And there's this attitude that, in order to be pious, you've got to you've got to tone it down. You've got
Yeah,
to
but that's what you get told, isn't it?
be
That's what you get
gentle.
told.
And, you know, I mean, if you look across the Arab world, you know, where Islam originated, you know, you would find that women are quite out there, you know, they're quite staunch.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. And I love that. When I literally like started to learn more and you know, went out and did my own knowledge, and all my teachers kept on saying, thank God for such decent and mindful teachers. They always said, no, read about Khadija, read about, you know, all these other, subhanAllah, such beautiful women within our religion. And I was like, whoa, there's one woman that was in the battlefield. What? And I'm reading about all these women. And I'm like, wait, I can still be myself. I can still be vibrant. But when you become a Muslim, you get told so much about how you're meant to act, how you're meant to be, how you're meant to. So as me being a black woman, and then to be a Muslim, it was like I had to kind of separate the two rather than actually enjoying them together. So that was like my own battle in my head. It's like, okay, I'm proud of being a black woman, because at the end of the day, I'm already getting racial abuse regardless of being Muslim. Now I'm getting racial abuse being Muslim and black. You understand? So that was another difference. So when you're in the religion, you're like, yeah, you know, alhamdulillah, you're being a Muslim. And it's like, oh yeah, but you can't be this loud, or you can't do this. And you're thinking, bro, like I've got to change my whole personality just to be a Muslim. Like, okay,
that sounds like something you relate to, Dawood. Is that been similar to your?
Yeah, 100%. What happens is that I was super zealot, so I was very, very into it. Like when I became Muslim, till this day, actually, I really regret burning bridges with so many people, like friends from like my previous life, if you like. And that was also because there was like this belief at one point that there was a need for me to migrate spiritually, but then also physically to this place that is called being a Muslim. And I thought that means detaching yourself from who you are as a person. And that really was in hindsight, it's very, very painful, because I was denying my personhood and denying who I was, and denying the people around me. And I think it's a bit of a typical sort of like Muslim revert story thing when you are like very young, because I was 16 years old when I became Muslim. So I was super, super young. And then gradually I just increased and became more zealot in it. And my parents saw like this side of me they didn't see before, you know. Because like I said, like your awareness changes. So for example, things like Palestine, and I remember having like this debate with my parents, and they're like, oh my God, have they radicalized my son? You know, this is me being now Muslim for 5 years, and obviously I care much about the Palestinian cause and all these things. And I feel like sometimes not being Muslim, you may still be involved in political issues, you know, if you come from a Marxist perspective or whatever. But the Muslim thing really gave me the opportunity to look at across the board and look what's happening in the world, especially in the Muslim world.
Did you feel the same kind of cultural tensions as Zara was telling about, in terms of the expectation, perhaps?
Yeah. So basically, the Congolese culture is very strong, but it also is very flexible. So Congolese people tend to be like, they will never in your face say to you, oh, how dare you, how would you become Muslim? Because they're like 95%, it's like a 95% a Christian country. So Congolese people have been Christian for a very long time, since the 15th century. So I remember going to like family. So this is now the extended family, because the extended family is not going to react the way my family is going to react. I remember when I moved to the UK, I was living with a family member for a year, and he was not a fan of Islam. He was like, he forbade me from fasting. He forbade me from praying at his house. And that was tough for like a year. And unfortunately, he was doing it from a total place of ignorance, because like the way he viewed Islam, it was like this outside Arab religion. So yeah, I've encountered that before with some family members who would say like some very weird remarks they would make.
Well, to go back to Batool, have you got any other questions you want to ask? I've got something.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've worked with converts to Islam for so many years now.
Yeah.
And you know, because I'm a white Muslim of Irish background, we get a lot of criticism from Muslims from Black and Asian backgrounds who come to Islam, like Sikh, Hindu, and Black African Caribbeans, about the fact that you know, we're a mostly white organization. But it's almost like not for the want of trying. You know, we keep trying to bring people in and trying to bring in the Black community. But I'm wondering, you know, is it audacious of me or of white convert Muslims to think that we can provide the support for Black Muslims? Do Black Muslims need to do this for themselves? Because, you know, yeah, sorry, Zara.
No, I was just saying that I think in most cases I think what happens is understanding the cultural difference. I think that in itself is a very, very big thing for, I guess, for any revert, regardless. If you're Pakistani, you want to kind of have someone who's Pakistani and Muslim, just to relate, just to understand the culture, just to understand that differentiation and all of that. So I think in terms of the religion itself, that in itself is very generic. That itself is a whole. But having the culture is a whole nother level to kind of cater to. So for instance, like yourself, in an Irish background, mashallah, I have such Irish friends, and they're similar in terms of the way that the culture's together and all of that. But in terms of being a Black person now, that's a different kind of relation. That's a different issue. And there's different things that we might encounter. Do you understand? And unfortunately, and to be kind of blunt, but as a white or an Asian person in the Muslim community, you're more accepted than if you're a Black person. You know,
yes,
that does really happen, and it's so unfortunate to say, because stuff like I don't want to say it, but like, and then when people start bringing up Bilal, Anhu, about how he was the first Black, you know, Muslim, and how he was, and how everything was generic. You know, you always hear about that, and you're like, okay, I get that Bilal's there, but at the same time, we're still fighting that. We're still fighting that. What the Prophet came down to try and tarnish. We're still fighting that. Because as a Black Muslim, you still get the things that Bilal got. You still get, you know, the things that Bilal encountered. May not be severe, but it's kind of everyone's trial is different. At the same time, we still get that. You know, people don't look at me like, oh no, it's been tarnished. The Prophet came down, you know, it's all right. You know, look at Bilal. It's like you keep mentioning Bilal, but you're the same person. If a Black woman or a Black brother was to come and ask for your daughter's hand in marriage, you'd be like, no.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
It doesn't. It's still, you're still kind of prejudiced, regardless. You still kind of have them views, and unfortunately, we tackle them.
You know, there was there was a narratives of conversion. I think you were part of it, Dawood. I think you attended it in Cambridge.
Oh, yes.
Yes, the narratives of conversion. And unfortunately, Zara, you weren't part of the female narratives of conversion, which is unfortunate. But inshallah, I'm hoping that we will, as the Convert Muslim Foundation, we will establish something to take that forward. But I noticed that the female Muslim narratives, we talked a lot more about Black conversion and the challenges that Black women faced on conversion compared to white women who were more or less, you know, presented as the angels on the Christmas tree, and you know, we were the what you call it, the you know, the ornaments on the mantelpiece, whereas Black Muslim women were just literally ignored. They were almost they didn't even rate in the Muslim community. And I think in the narratives of conversion for the men, the discussion was brought up, but it sort of was shut down very quickly. and they didn't speak about it as much, which I was really disappointed about. And I think, yes, Dawood.
Yeah, I remember. I remember partaking in a symposium. It was on for 2 days, 3 days actually. It was a life-changing experience. I've met loads of people there. I remember that. I think and there was another group of other Black brothers who were a bit older than me. There weren't as many Black reverts to start with. I think that was one.
Yeah.
And also the concentration of like the questions weren't really so for example, I remember like one of the older ones, they were talking a lot about gatekeeping and how they've been shut out from like opportunities, but like race per se was not a dominating factor or topic that they were discussing. And I presume, because I remember I had I was given the book that was where the females were participating. I remember having the book, and I know that there was a huge chunk of Black reverts. I don't know how true these statistics are, but I think the biggest group of females reverting to Islam are Black in the UK, or Black.
It's one of the largest cohorts, black converts in the UK, specifically the African Caribbean community. Is one of the largest cohorts.
Yeah. And that's never as I think, to really answer that question that Sister Batool asked us about, that the organization is perceived as a wide organization, and it seems like Black people aren't really keen to partake. I would say maybe it's to do with also how and who is communicating, because we know from the Seerah, for example, that the Prophet Muhammad, he would handpick people from particular tribes to go back to their tribes and invite them to Islam. So I think like perhaps use that technique as well, pick someone who seems to be connected to the Black community to invite people and show Black people that, look, here are resources, and also maybe work in a way where self-sufficiency can be established at later stages, so where the Black community can cater to their own needs, because that's something that Black people love to talk about, autonomy and how to establish that. And I don't see
Do you both feel that there is a community there? Do you feel as if there is a lot of community support for Black converts in general? Or do you feel it's more kind of handpicked, more focused, perhaps, in terms of ethnic groups? What's been your experience there?
I think, me personally, there isn't a lot. Well, I'm not going to lie, there's not much for Black people. And if there are, it's a minority that don't get either the support or the funding. And in respect to that, it's like you might have it, but then it's like it's catered to like an Asian group, or it's catered to a different type of Black. I don't know. It's hard to per se on it, because it's like you try to want to cater to Black people, but it's like you're kind of stuck, because you don't have the support, you don't have the energy, you don't have the time, or not a lot of people have faith in it because they feel like it might get shut down anyway. So it's hard,
That feels like a catch-22 in terms of the fact that the converts who could possibly support other converts, the kind of the peer supporters, if you like, because they're struggling themselves, they're not necessarily got the resources to then support others who are in the same situation.
I mean, I even remember, if I may just interject before I forget, I remember a few years ago there was this movement happening on social media where Black converts came together, or Black people in general, and they organized this thing called Black Eid, and they got attacked for that by the wider Muslim community, and the objection was, well, you guys are dividing the community. Why are you calling this Black Eid? Like, there's no racism in Islam, blah, 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 blah. And yeah, so that was something where Black people try to organize something for themselves.
And Dowd, that's rich coming from a community that's divided along sectarian lines in every in the country. You know, I mean, this is really, it's almost a contradiction in terms. But Zara, you were saying, I'm sorry to say, and I feel bad to say this. Zara, you shouldn't feel bad. You know, these things have to be discussed.
Yeah.
To be brought out, and we have to empower people to be able to feel comfortable, to be acknowledged, to be respected within the Muslim community. And you guys, you said earlier about your background. It's the culture, your culture, and I think this is the crux of the matter. It's about your culture, and it's about adapting or this cultural milieu into Islam, and realizing that we all come from different parts of the world, different origins, and so on and so forth, and even we come from different faith backgrounds. Certain things were done when we were growing up in terms of how people got married, how people were buried, how funerals were conducted, and so on. So why is it that we can't bring parts of that culture into Islam, like every other community have done? It's like, don't be shy to speak your truth.
You're only shy because when you've lived that, regardless, even before you're a Muslim, you've lived that whole shun down and culture and tried to put into white society kind of thing. You already have that in your head. You already have that kind of like monotone personality anyway. So then when you come to a religion where it's supposed to embrace you and it's supposed to say, do you know what? That has been abolished and this and that and the other. And you read about the books and you read about all of the things that had happened. You read about how women were supposed to be treated. You read about how Black people are supposed to be treated. And then you come to the actual society and you're saying, oh, that's not even like rejected. That's not even reciprocated. So you're just like, okay, cool. I'm back to basically, I'm a Muslim, but
it doesn't match, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Did you feel disillusioned by that when you came up against, like, the theory just did not match with the practice? To what extent did you?
Yeah, because you're like here.
Yes, yeah.
Because you're here, isn't it? When you
disillusioned,
and you're here. Your mind is like, yes, I'm a Muslim. Yeah, like when you're here, you're like, yes, I'm a Muslim. Yeah, alhamdulillah, thank God, I've embraced something. It's beautiful. And then you get to the society or the community, and initially, like we were talking about before, Batool, when you actually become a Muslim, the people around you are either Asian or white. When I first saw a Black Muslim, I was like, oh my gosh, my sister, salam alaikum. I was like, yo, how are you? You know what I mean? Because before that, I kid you not, before that, I was just around Asians. I was around white sisters, Moroccan sisters, Arab sisters. That's who I was around. So when I first saw a Gambian sister, I was like, yo, salam alaikum. I was like, are you really? I was like, wait, what? How? Come, tell me, It was just such a massive thing for me. And because of the way I am, I love to embrace people.
Did that bring a sense of disillusionment to you? And to what extent did that disillusionment affect you? And does that sort of sense of disillusionment, does that turn Black converts away from Islam? Dowd, what do you think?
So I think I was on the brink of experiencing disillusionment, but what saved me was that I was thoroughly engaged in studying Islam. So that saved me, because I was able to look at Islam and be like, okay, this is Islam and this is how the Muslims are behaving. So I've been stuck in this role where I'm sort of like a cultural critic when it comes to like Muslims. Like, I'm so critical because I've been involved in the dawah. So I'm like always, man, we could do so much better in this country. But there are like these small things that we do that hinder the process. And one of them things is how the Muslim community is with the Black community in general, like how these things have. I remember, and obviously all these racial tensions that have increased in the last few years. I remember the first time ever to have seen that was with the comedian Nabil, who's been on British Got Talent, and he got actually into the finals, and he was sort of the first guy where I saw where a group of Muslims, like cultural Muslims, attacked him for his skin color and called him the slur names and things like that. That was very shocking to me. I was like, wow, so that does actually happen, because you also hear stories.
Was
then,
this the gentleman he had come over to the UK, he was living in Manchester? Yes, very funny guy.
Nabil, yes. And he was attacked. He was attacked by people who were involved in charity, so he was not just some idiot guy. And from there on, it just kept coming. I kept seeing all these waves of like racial abuse from like the bigger community. And like I said, and like what Sister Sarah was saying, when you come into the religion, you're like, wow, this is amazing. I love this. And then slowly you start to pick up these like crazy things. But I was saved because I knew who the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was, and I knew the companion, and that saved me from, but
that's the importance of education versus what you see out there in the community. I just want to take the opportunity to remind people that you're listening to Radio Ramadan London on 87.9 FM or online, or we're also streaming, and you can find us on the Facebook and YouTube. You're welcome on the Convert Show. We're joined by Dawood and Zara, and we're discussing Black conversion to Islam in the UK. So just want to go from that point in terms of, we've just been talking about disillusionment in terms of the fact that often the expectations of the community from what we learn from Islam and then what we find in the community can often be a bit distraught and often is not quite what we expect to find. In terms of what support could be offered or what support is needed now, what do you think is the next step for Black converts in the UK? Because the difficulty from my perspective is it's such a large group, but yet at the same time there seems to be very little in the way of support, and there also seems to be little in the way of visibility, other than when it's negative, such as when sometimes, unfortunately, you see it in the press. So what's the next step forward for that kind of group of converts? Do we think? Dawood, Zara.
I was just going to say, like, in terms of support for Black communities, that the mere fact that Black communities have to actually come together, I think that's the first step first. I think regardless of support or whether we, do this organization, that organization, it's actually just coming together in this instance. Like, for instance,
maybe a celebration perhaps then, or something.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, if like the brother had mentioned that they were going to do a Black Eid, like Sister Batool said, say your truth. Maybe we should need to do a Black Eid so that people out there who do become Muslim, because someone could have become Muslim that Ramadan, and so they're thinking, okay, am I a white Muslim, or am I an Asian Muslim? Am I this Muslim, that Muslim? No, you're still yourself. You're still a Black Muslim, But then it's like, if you don't see it, you're gonna have a different idea in your head. So why not do a Black celebration? Do an Eid Black celebration, And then by the time people do realize it, that like you said, the disillusion will kind of fade out, and they will understand that, no, although I'm unique, I'm still part of a community. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's having that. If you, it's like, if you see the same people around you, you still feel okay. Yeah, I'm okay. You still get your trials and tribulations, but you still feel, what, I'm good. I'm cushy. Do you know what I mean?
Not necessarily to segregate, but to collate instead.
Yeah.
I would say it's just a very difficult question, but like I was fascinated. This happened last year in May. I came across this image of like protesters in the 60s, and it was like black protesters, and then I saw Asian protesters, and there was this Asian protester, and he was holding a banner, and the banner said, "I am black." I was like, what? So I did a bit of digging and found out that in the 60s, Asians used to consider themselves black. So the term black was used quite broadly, and it became a political term. And there was heavy alliances between the black community and the Asian community facing political threats from the National Front in the 60s. So I was shocked. I was like, wow, so this is amazing. This is interesting. So I did a bit more digging and found out that these communities were exchanging. Now the question is, what changed? And we know about this as well between the Jamaican community and the Irish community, that there were strong alliances as well. And I would say maybe perhaps in agreement with Sister Sarah, that Black people have to come together, but also maybe explore and rekindle those alliances again. And the first step would be, what happened? Why did these alliances deter? Why did they collapse? Why don't they exist anymore? There's loads of Irish reverts, and there's loads of Jamaican reverts. Why is there no link between those communities any longer?
Well, I think it's because, society in general, and really this is a top-down approach, you know, and they sort of, the Asian community became whitened. They were whitened, and they were given opportunities that offered them ways and means of improving themselves, improving lives, while other communities, Black, were sort of sidelined, marginalized. So it was almost it was a top-down approach in order to make certain groups of people look down on other groups of people. And of course, this is how you divide and rule and all the rest. I mean, it really is incredible, actually. And I think you're right. I mean, we look back and there was those posters outside houses: no blacks, no Irish, no dogs. SubhanAllah, what a terrible and yes, and I'm sure that the Irish were in alliance with the Black people, because we were all treated in the same sort of, under the same disrepute, at that time. But then the top-down approach was to raise the profile of certain people and lower of certain others, so that there was a tiered system. I just, I'm just wondering how, because even us as white converts to Islam, how Black converts, how converts from various different groups, like the Sikh converts and the Hindu converts, who often get lost under the whole Asian cultural banner. And there's no help for them either, because when they walk into a mosque, everybody presumes that they're Asian and that they know everything about Islam. So they're too shy to ask, and so they don't get help. I just wonder, how can we become cultural creators?
Wow, I love that.
And have this kind of Islam that represents and celebrates the variety of cultures of people who are coming into the faith. For instance, people from Nigeria, people from African Caribbean, people from various different backgrounds, they celebrate weddings, they celebrate funerals even, they celebrate the person who has passed away. They get together, they speak about them, they have a different approach to this whole thing. Why can't we bring these things into Islam? This is part and parcel of who we are.
You made a really good point, because I'm thinking about food. Obviously, it's kind of stuff like food.
Yes,
I'm thinking about food, like different types of cultural food. Oh my gosh, like Ghana, jollof rice, Congolese. Oh my gosh, your food is on point. So do you know what I mean? Like that in itself. But when I became Muslim, I just thought like, oh yeah, I have to eat biryani and that's it. That's I'm done. You know what I mean? But like I didn't embrace like the different my culture, I didn't bring that back in, because like we have different types of soup and things like that. But
Yes.
just in itself, the food, or just in itself, the weddings, every type of different topic, we have our own culture towards it. So, for instance, like Afro-Caribbean, the way, you know, they celebrate certain things, we, you know, we can embrace it. And like you said, have the etiquettes of Islam, but still have your culture with it, you know?
Exactly.
And it's such an extensive and such an intense and depth kind of topic, only because it's like when you become Muslim, or when you are becoming, you know, more into your faith, you kind of have that understanding that, oh, you know, is this right? And then, is that right? Or can I do this? Can I do that? So like all of that comes in your head, and then it kind of defers you or deters you from actually doing anything, because you're like, I don't know if that's pleasing to Allah. Oh, is that
Yeah.
right? You know, you start like having all these little doubts and stuff. And then when someone says to you, oh, but is that halal? And you're like, it's just patty, like it's
Yeah. I would oh, sorry. I would say, look, if you think about it, so it's when you speak of culture, especially, it's all about perception. So many Black Muslims need to first of all understand that Islam is not alien to us. Islam has been in Africa for a very, very long time.
Exactly.
There's over 100 million Muslims in West Africa alone. Okay, like that needs to deepen in. And the other thing as well is that we are, like Sister Batool was saying, the tier system in this country mirrors the colonial project of Britain.
Yes.
So there's loads of Asians because Britain conquered and colonized India and Pakistan and things like that, and some parts of Africa where the population wasn't really 100% Muslim. Because if you go to France, as a Black Muslim in France, you may not have the same issues that we have in the UK, because they are from Mali and they are from Chad and these other places who are like 100% Muslim. In terms of culture, I would say this: there's changes happening as we speak. For example, I was mentioning Nabil, right? He went on to British Got Talent, and his jokes were about him being a Black Muslim and how people are so surprised when they hear that he's a Muslim, right? That was the whole shtick of his jokes, and that's why he was so unique with his approach. So I would say it's really, really vital for us to support people like him, because he is now bringing a whole new representation of what it means to be Muslim. Look, I'm Muslim, I'm Black, and these are my issues. When I go to someone and say, my name is Nabil, they look at me and they're like, where's Nabil? When he's waiting in a waiting room, you know, overlooking him and not even fathoming that he could be the Nabil that they're looking for. There's another guy called Mamadou Tao. He's a Gambian brother who's an activist, and he's been speaking about these issues that we have in our community, on how anti-Blackness has become part of the Muslim community in many aspects, and we're not aware of these things. So people like that need to be amplified, need to be supported, if it's somehow financial, or in terms of like, if they have ideas and projects, they have to be supported. And I feel like that would be a good way, you know, because that's like, and this is my last point, sorry for over talking. Malcolm X, for example, he I remember watching it was a documentary, and the way Islam was viewed in America in the 60s, it was known to be an African American religion. And that was because of the people who were promoting it, talking about it. So we just need to support that representation that's out there, and there's more people coming.
I think you're right there in regards to American mosques and whatnot, because when I was over there and we visited an American mosque in California, I was perhaps looking back on it, I shouldn't have been so surprised that the khutbah was extremely political, because it is wrapped up in the politics of America. Islam is very much a political movement as much as it is religion in terms of America. But over here, it does seem that it's almost a hidden identity in terms of being black and Muslim. Somali, perhaps, I mean, being in Leicester, you can't help but you know the Somali community. If you spend any time in Leicester, you know who's Somali, and you know what, generally speaking, the Somali community looks like in Leicester. But other than that, I don't know of other areas where there are key kind of demographics or key demographic mosques. Whereas you'd expect to find that for, say, Bangladeshis would have maybe their own ethnic mosque, Yemenis, Arabians.
Can I just quickly say something? This is where I think that's the problem, because when you, for instance, like you said, the Somali mosque and things like that, just like the Sikh who's going into an Asian community, they'll be mistaken for not a revert, and then it's like, oh yeah, he knows everything. Me being a black woman, and you know my structure and stuff, people are like, oh yeah, she's Somali, but okay, that's good, she's Somali, but and then they'll be like, oh yeah, well she's not, you know, they don't emphasize that you're a convert, they don't, you know, understand that you are a convert. It's like, oh, I thought you were Somali, and I thought, you know, I was just saying Somali and all this things to you, and I'm like, how, you know, this is where the problem is. That's where I get it. We should bring our own culture and things like that. But then when it's seen as such a generic culture, that's the problem. You know, that's the problem where it's like you see a black brother, and then people are like, oh, is he a convert? Did he go to prison? Is he? Oh, he's Jamaican. And it's like no, he's from, you know, Sierra Leone, and he's not. You know, do you know what I mean? It's that in itself. People are not educated enough. Understand? And then it's like, you know, you do get the Malcolm X, you know, and things like that. And it's like we need to understand the mere fact that, you know, having a black culture in itself is like a whole nother level, because there are different kind of variants to it. You understand? It's like,
absolutely. And I think maybe what we have to do is, first of all, I think we have to bring black people together, black converts to Islam together, to be able to speak their own truth, to be able to just know what it is themselves that they want to do. And then after that, I think what we really need to do is build confidence, build knowledge, build capacity, build leadership, so that people have the confidence to come out and say it as it is. You know, sort of stay stuck in the corners or in the shadows in the mosques and just not call it out. Be called out.
I know there's two masjids I know who are run by, like there's one masjid in South London that is run by Nigerians, and then there's another masjid in South London in Brixton that's run has a sort of heavily Caribbean sort of background. Unfortunately, I don't want to say this, but the problem, especially with one of those masjids, the one in Brixton, is that it used to be totally different in the 80s, I've been told, and changed in the 90s because of the petrodollars. So like this is one thing that we didn't really discuss, or we did discuss, is that unfortunately sometimes as well as Muslims, as a black Muslim, what happens is that you take on someone else's fight. So you disregard yourself and you disregard who you are, and then you take on, oh no, I'm a Salafi, you know, and my allegiance is to the Saudi kingdom and things like that. So that has really, I believe, and I might be wrong, but it has skewed
the whole process.
Yeah, it did to an extent.
I just want to take that opportunity there to kind of to say it's a very complex issue, and we've touched the surface today. But I really want to thank Dawood and Sarah for joining us with that. I think it's clear in some respects, as Batool was saying, in terms of the fact that I think unification might be the key. And I think we discussed in the very first of our Ramadan radio sessions, actually, the idea of a cultural buffet. And I would say, given, because people generally lump Africa into a singular term, but realistically, that's such a huge, it's a continent. We forget there's a continent, and it's full of people, not just a country, but a continent. And those cultures all have their own ways of celebrating, all have their own influences and ways of doing things. And without that ability to have a kind of an open cultural buffet, I suppose we can ignore the individual and we don't get to see all the different flavors that can be displayed there.
Yeah.
I just want to end with a singular kind of like, if we can get kind of capture of a sentence or two out of Dawood and Zara. Other than that kind of unification and collation, what would you say is, in one word maybe, what would you say is the biggest thing facing black converts today?
We have only 60 seconds.
Yes. So
Identity, cohesion.
identity, cohesion, Dawood and Zara?
I think the problem right now is just lack of knowledge and lack of understanding self. If you understand yourself and you understand what, being your own self and you're being black person, then, enough, like Batool said, you'll speak your truth.
Yeah.
Perhaps having education of Islam and having
Inshallah.
education yourself are the two most important things. Thank you very
We
much
will-
for joining us.
Inshallah. And we will be coming back to you, Dawood and Zara. This
Sure.
is finished.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks
Assalamu
for
alaikum.
having us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa
Alaikum
barakatuh.
salam. Alaikum salam.
salam.
Thank you for joining us.
You're listening to
pleasure.
Ramadan Radio London on 89.7 FM.